Hello and welcome to this week's edition of our Come Follow Me discussion that we have as we walk around the Saratoga Springs Temple. This week we're going to be talking about Doctrine and Covenants sections 85 to 87, which we're very excited to share with you because there are so many good topics this week. We're going to talk about the wheat and the tares. We're going to talk about standing in holy places. We're going to talk about the importance of keeping records. And more, lots more. We also have two very special guests with us this week. Our grandson is walking around with us, as well as our new little doggy. So we may have to take some pauses if we need some potty breaks. But off we go to just have our family discussion, and we're so happy to have you join us this week.
So section 85 starts out, Joseph actually was in New York, and he was in Boston. He was doing some stuff there, missionary work and other things. And when he came back to Kirtland, he's now living in Kirtland above the Newell K. Whitney store. When he came back, he had a bunch of letters, and these letters were from some different people in Independence, Missouri. And they were kind of talking about all the troubles that's going on in Independence. And some of the big problems were because there was a group of people who came and they wanted to do their own united order. So that's living the law of consecration, is having a whole, everybody there doing that law of consecration. But in order to do it right, the Lord has said that people have to have a recommendation from their bishop, and certainly the First Presidency needs to know about it. Well, these people didn't have that, and so they moved in to Independence, Missouri without asking anybody. They moved in, they bought a bunch of land and they weren't supposed to, and then they were needing some stuff from the bishop's storehouse, and of course that wasn't going well because they weren't planned. So here's all this stuff happening, and so Joseph has to write some letters. And one of these, section 85, is half of it is really just a letter to W. Phelps, who's talking about order and record keeping. So I think it's John Whitmer. He was the ward clerk. He was the church's clerk and historian. And so part of this was a little bit about him saying we have to have records for everything. And there's a lot of verses in section 85 that talk about having the right records for who has stewardships, who has been given deeds for their consecration and all that. And if it didn't happen that way, the Lord stressed, then they don't get the blessings for it. And so, we have records now. We have clerks now who do records. And I always wondered why we have to have so many records. As a bishop, I used to do tithing settlements all the time. And I kind of thought, although it was nice because I enjoyed talking with the members, I thought, why do we even do it? Because, I'm not really accounting for everything that they did. But that is one of the reasons right there. In section 85, the Lord tells us we have to keep good records, specifically about the way we consecrate our lives. And the law of tithing is part of the law of consecration. and how do we do that? And are we doing it or not? So that's all good.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know we're not quite on Lighthouse yet, but we may be taking a detour. We've lost our daughter, who's back there with the dog. I think he had to stop and take a potty break. So maybe let's just pause for a second. Okay. And let them catch up. But while we're pausing, I wanted to talk about record keeping, because one of the things it talks about in here is to keep a record of some of those folks that you were mentioning, of their testimonies, right, and of their spiritual well-being as well. Did you catch that in there? Which I thought was really interesting, and it brought to mind for me a talk that I always remember. It meant something to me at the time. I think we all have those talks in General Conference where it just really hits our heart. Well, President Eyring talked about, it was called Oh Remember, Remember. Mm-hmm. And he kept a journal of the times when he felt the Lord's hand in his life. That's what that journal was specifically about. which is interesting because as we look back, we see that Joseph Smith didn't just have one journal. He
Right.
had several journals that he kept, and one of them, here, hold this for a second. I'm going to have you hold this because I think this is just so fascinating. What we know as the first vision, he actually had a title for a journal where he wrote about that, and it was called A History of the Life of Joseph Smith Jr., an account of my marvelous experience. Don't you kind of love that?
Mm-hmm.
An account of my marvelous experience.
What a neat journal to have.
Yes, and so again, we have these spiritual experiences. We have these moments where we do feel that the hand of the Lord has blessed us or told us something, spoke to us. We've felt it in general conference, in times of need, when angels have been around us and buoyed us up. But we should have an account of those marvelous experiences.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Kurt Ensign, an account of my marvelous experience. Luke Ensign, Maya Ensign, an account of my marvelous experience. Wouldn't it be great if we all had that and kept track of these moments in our lives? And okay, I got another thing here too, because Spencer W. Kimball talked about this as well. And this was a talk that is, this was in 2003, and it was called The Angels May Quote From It.
Oh.
So that's how important our experiences are. As we write in our journals, angels may quote from those experiences that we have when we write about them. Isn't that amazing to think about? We're no different than any of these prophets and apostles and folks that wrote journals like Joseph Smith did, in the sense that we are each unique and have these experiences that are going to inspire others, our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come, and angels may quote from them. So it is important to keep.
And how else
keep
are they going to quote from them if we don't write it down?
And he just admonished, this is what he said. Get a notebook, a journal that will last throughout all time, and maybe the angels may quote from it for eternity. Begin today and write in your goings and comings, your deepest thoughts, your achievements and your failures, your associations and your triumphs, your impressions and your testimonies. So, boy, I started that journal after I heard President Eyring's talk, and I made a copy of his talk and I put that in the front of the journal, and then I have just added to it. I need to be better at it, but it's still there, and occasionally I do pull it out and remember to write in it, but I'm inspired to do better. So,
one interesting thing is you talked about the journals that Joseph Smith wrote. He didn't start writing journals until this section.
This one was the first one.
This section made him think, okay, I guess I do have to. The Lord's telling us to be good record keepers and be organized. That's really what Section 85 is all about. Section 86 is an interesting one. He had already gone through the New Testament, and he'd already gone through the book of Matthew. But one thing in the book of Matthew, chapter 13, it talks about the parable of the wheat and the tares. And in the wheat and the tares, he says how important it is to watch people and to make sure that they're not wheat and they're not tares. Of course, you know the wheat and the tares. Did you have something to say about wheat and tares?
A little bit, yeah. I just wanted to say that I think it's significant that this parable was already given.
Yeah,
it was given in Matthew. The Savior himself gave it when he was giving his sermon.
Right.
But he gave it again, and he explained things that he didn't explain when he was on the earth.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons why that happened is because the restoration is going on now. This is when the parable of the wheat and the tares is happening.
Yeah, this is when we have to
really need to understand
wait
it,
and then pull the wheat from the tares, know the difference.
Yeah, and so I think that's a testament to me of the principle that we are going to receive things differently from when Jesus received it. It's very important to have a living prophet,
Yeah.
so that we can receive further direction.
That is a really good point. Yeah.
Explanation.
The Lord gave that parable way back then. I'm sure that that was important then, but he made Joseph Smith think about it more and pray about it and give us this section 86 because it's a whole different time now, and so we're having to struggle through those things.
Yeah.
One thing about the wheat and the tares that I just thought of was we used to have a branch president, and he was a great guy, and I served with him, and but people didn't like him because he was a little harsh. But I remember him telling me that that's what this is plucking the wheat from the tares. So when he denied somebody a temple recommend because they weren't paying their tithing or they were doing something, people would get upset about it. But he said, you know what? At some point in time, the Lord's got to pull the tares out of there and burn them all up. I thought he was a great guy, and that's a very true statement. That's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Another one of the things that they talk about, specifically in section 87, there's a bunch of wars there. He talks about the Civil War, he talks about World War I, and the main thing, hey Maya, the main thing that I think we can get out of that is that he says stand in holy places, and because if we're going to have to go through troubles because of war and disagreements, then don't worry about it. Just stand and make sure you're standing in a holy place. What do you got to say about that, Maya?
Okay, so the phrase stand ye in holy places and be not moved is a scripture from Doctrine and Covenants 87:8, like you were saying, and 45:32. And it kind of just refers about the importance of remaining in faith and righteousness, mostly in the face of adversity and during the end times. And it emphasizes the need to be morally pure, reverent, and obedient to God's commandments. And yeah, I just think that really can help you.
So what's a place? What's a holy place? If he tells us to stand in holy places and stay there, don't be moved, what's a holy place to you?
Kind of just like a place where I feel like safe and secure.
What about that place? The temple?
Good, yeah.
Is that a holy place?
Yeah.
So, if we spend a lot more time in the temple, and what is it? Prophet tells us all the time we should go to the temple and spend plenty of time there. If we're doing that, then we're going to feel the Spirit, and we're going to be not moved and do the right things.
Well, also, obviously, yes, the temple, for sure, that's really important. It's the most holy place on earth.
Right.
But also our homes
That's a
can
big
be
one.
a place where we want them to be
Right.
a holy place, where we can feel the Spirit and where things of Jesus Christ are talked about and taught and thought about constantly. So I think that's really important too, to remember that we need to create that holy place in our homes. And also, on this note, I wanted to bring up a quote from Elder Bednar. He said, "The forces of good are clearly and continually under attack. There are times when it seems the world is almost drowning in a flood of filth and degradation. And I want to cry out, hold on to what is right and true. Therein is safety. Don't let yourself be swept away." So just, as these things are happening in the world more and more, we can hang on to what we know is right and true and find safety in those things. So I love that thought and how important it is to stand in holy places. Physically, yes, like the temple, but also to create those holy places where we are hearing and listening to the right voices.
Well, that's so true. I mean, even if you can't be physically in a place like the temple or your home or your church or something like that, you can in your heart and your mind be in a holy place. I remember my mom always used to tell me, if you're having problems or struggles or temptations, then you sing a hymn. You have a hymn in your mind and in your heart, and that'll always help you. So there's your holy place. Well, we have made it all the way around to the
This
temple.
is a great section. Yes, I
Yeah.
love everything that we talked about today. Thanks,
It
everybody,
really
for your
has
words
lots of good stuff.
wisdom. Yes, thank you so much for joining us on our family discussion, and hopefully you just got a little bit of insight as we talked about what's important to us. You've had some inspiration of your own, and just as a reminder, we haven't asked to write down those inspirational moments so that we can remember and our posterity can remember from where our testimony comes from, and angels may quote from it someday. So
Perfect.
thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Ensigns to the Nations.